Let's bring in Yossi Gozlan of the Third Apron podcast and, of course, Substack to break down where the Suns stand when it comes to money, which has been a theme with this team for quite some time, ever since Mat Ishbia took over. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, but I don't know how I'm going to follow that lead.
I'm sorry, man. We set you up for failure with that one. It just worked out that we had to double dip on the special guest today, but we really do appreciate you being on. I just hopped on the Third Apron podcast not too long ago to talk about the Suns situation. Yep. So glad we could return the favor. Let's just start right off the top with a question that we've been getting quite a lot, especially after the Suns claimed Jordan Goodwin off of waivers and then signed Jared Butler to a non-guaranteed deal. According to your projections, where do the Suns stack up in terms of being just underneath the luxury tax or just being over the luxury tax?
So following the stretch of Bradley Beal, they are now under both the aprons and they're like right at the luxury tax. They're like slightly over it, but they're so close enough that they can get under it with a trade. Now, even though they're right at the luxury tax, they could still... I think the big decision they have to make now is, one, do they want to either stick with this group and add a 15th guy, such as Jared Butler? Jared Butler doesn't count against the cap right now. He's a training camp deal. But if he makes the roster, if anybody else, then they're going to be like about $2 million over the tax, but still they can get under it around the trade deadline with a small trade. But then the other thing is, well, what if they want to now use their newfound flexibility to make a trade that maybe puts them a little more over the tax, maybe closer to the first apron? Then it might be a little more challenging to get below the tax later. I think that I would imagine the Suns are open to that, just depending on who the player is, what the trade is. So we'll see. I think most likely they probably get under the tax, but just depending on the opportunity, if there's something that can significantly improve the roster, I think they might be open to paying a little bit of tax for that.
And just to clarify, as a quick follow-up, they need to be under the tax by the end of the season, correct?
So, yeah, by the last day of the regular season, whatever their payroll is in relation to the tax, that's what the league's looking at. But more realistically, they're going to want to get under it at the trade deadline, because that's really the most realistic way they can maneuver their way out of it. After that, if they're over the tax, there's not really too much they could do to get below it.
Yossi, I'm curious for you. If Ishbia and company decided to duck the tax, is that just a signal of them changing course? Or is that more so kind of like run-of-the-mill for teams that are trying to fill like non-contender rosters at this point?
I would say they kind of changed course already by trading Kevin Durant, by parting ways with Bradley Beal. And it's more so a result of what the not meeting expectations, and especially last year outright missing the play-in to spend as much money as they did, that they couldn't justify that. So they had to lower expenses somehow, and thankfully the Bradley Beal, he gave up enough in a buyout so they could stretch him and get the payroll to this level now that now they're basically in a position to duck the tax. But it's more so, if they do duck the tax next year, part of it is, yeah, they can't really justify being taxpayers right now, but also right now they're in the repeater tax. They've been in the tax now for 3 straight years. So they're part of why they were going to have like a $500 million rosters, because they pay higher rates if they're in the repeater tax. And to get out of it, they need to get out of the tax for like multiple years. So it kind of makes sense where right now, okay, scale back the payroll, duck the tax for a couple of years, and maybe they can put together a roster that's much stronger. So by the time they do, it does make more sense to pay tax again. They wouldn't have to pay quite as much as they were projected to. This year it'd be more reasonable rates like they were spending the past few years.
Yossi Gozlan of the Third Apron podcast and Substack, breaking down everything numbers related and contract related and CBA and cap related, which is a necessity in today's NBA. And There was a really big move from the Suns recently beyond the Kevin Durant trade, which was waiving and stretching Bradley Beal. And it had Suns fans, NBA fans, cap analysts, a lot of people divided because of the pros and cons of extending him and making him a 5-year problem on your cap sheet instead of a 2-year problem, but then gaining some flexibilities. Can you run us through, just from an outside, non-biased perspective, what the pros and cons to the Bradley Beal waive and stretch were?
Well, for the most part, I'm pretty anti-stretching, even for like leaving a couple $1 million on your roster. And just as a example, we just saw what the Bucks did with stretching Damian Lillard, partially because he was injured and he wasn't going to play. I understand that rationale, but now they've got $22.5 million a year for 5 years, and they decided to use that flexibility to sign Miles Turner. He's a great player. He's their Brook Lopez replacement. I don't think he's good enough to justify doing that type of move, in my opinion. So when you're looking at the Suns, they mainly did it, one, to control their payroll, get out of the tax, which, okay, I get that justification as well, but I don't think it's going to result in now they have flexibility where they can take on more salary in trades, aggregate contracts, mid-level exception, all that nice stuff, but they still have a pretty high payroll, and they already have like a lot of neutral to bad contracts. They can't trade any first-round picks, so it's pretty unlikely that flexibility is going to result in bringing in a really impactful addition this year and probably even next year. So that's where I come out of it, that if you're going to stretch that, have that amount of money stretch over time, it better be to really bring in someone who could increase your ceiling. And that didn't happen with the Bucks, in my opinion, and I have a hard time seeing that happening anytime soon with the Suns. So overall, I probably would have just eaten the next 2 years even if it's just getting somewhat of a slight discount on a buyout, and just lower the cap hit on the next 2 years. Yeah, they're still going to be they probably were still going to be over the first apron, but I feel like they're going to have more or less the same type of outcome as far as what the roster would look like.
You mentioned that flexibility of being tough to see, the Suns being able to add someone. We obviously have heard a lot of Jonathan Kaminga related rumors. You would have to, it's not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen, because we've heard that there's like less than a 1% chance of the Suns finding a way to get the Warriors to sign and trade Kaminga to Phoenix. But if that did happen, and knowing that it would hard cap the Suns at the first apron to sign and trade for him, what would be your thoughts on that type of pickup, and not just the player and the fit, but the salary cap implications of doing that as well?
It'd be nice value for sure if they can turn what their reported offer was. I think it was was it Allen and Richards, or was it Royce and Richards?
Yeah, I think it was Allen and Richards, or Royce and Richards, and probably a second.
And multiple seconds, whatever they can offer. I think they have like 2 or 3. So from a value point, I think that's a great trade. And that wouldn't have been possible had they not gotten under the first apron. At the same time, it's kind of like the Miles Turner thing. Yeah, Kaminga's a nice player. Realistically, might be one of the best players the Suns could possibly get over the next few years, given their lack of resources. But so, like, just from the value point, given where they are, it'd be a nice move. I don't think I'd have any problems with them being hard capped to the first apron because of it. I think for the most part, they're probably either going to duck the tax, or just, if they are going to increase their payroll, they wouldn't be too much. They're like $6 million below the first apron. So at the highest end, I wouldn't see them increasing their payroll by that much more, which a Kaminga sign and trade could get them to. But I think even more realistically, let's say they did get Kaminga, they could probably still figure out a way to duck the tax later.
With the way that the Suns have gone about the Durant trade, waiver stretch for Beal, the extension for Booker, getting younger through the draft, we're all curious over here. What's been your kind of overarching assessment for how the Suns have recoursed as they kind of head into this proverbial retool by that's what Mat Ishbia and Brian Gregory have called it. So we'll call it a retool for as long as it looks like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know after I'm done talking if I'm one of the bigger pessimists you guys have had on recently. But I said about the Bradley Beal thing, which I think is more a result of their decisions, having so many bad contracts, having traded all their picks where they had no moves to make, and then this is with their backs against the wall, they had to do this, or they felt that they had to do this. That's my explanation on the Beal thing. I already mentioned a couple minutes ago I wouldn't have done this path. I also don't understand the rush to extend Devin Booker. This kind of feels like something that, because of how poorly things have gone over the past few years, and with Durant's impending exit in the leading months to free agency, maybe the Suns felt that they had to offer this to Booker to even have him to keep him bought in to the situation, knowing that they were going to not have Durant and potentially not Beal, and as I look at things, I would guess they're a play-in team at best right now. So if it kind of feels to me like, again, another result of a lot of their bad decisions, they felt the need to give this extension to Booker, who has 3 years left on his contract. Usually contracts that are given out that far ahead, it's pretty risky because they're betting on that he's going to be a 35% max player 3 years from now. Damian Lillard, he last did this type of extension with the Blazers, had 3 years left on his deal, signed for the Supermax, and unfortunately he got injured, and now he's not going to have played a minute. So I'm not saying that kind of bad case scenario is going to happen to Booker, but for a guy who has not, like, in my eyes, not really a top 15 player, but and definitely hasn't, I don't think has been quite at that level in the past few years, to pay him like he's a first or second team, like, perennial All-NBA guy, I think that was just kind of a rush. So yeah, I know. Yeah, but you tell me, is this like the most scathing guest you've had recently? I'm sorry, I'm just not a fan of the Suns offseason.
I mean, it's up there, but trust me, when it comes to negativity around the Suns, you are not out there on your own. It is certainly feeling like more and more common from everybody, but it's a good perspective to have because we are in the thick of things, in the weed of things, and trust me, it's not all sunshines and rainbows over here, but we do appreciate Yossi Gozlan's perspective of the Third Apron podcast and Substack. We do appreciate you taking some time out of your day and enlightening us and maybe depressing us a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's most important to bring the facts. So we do appreciate you bringing the facts to PHNX Suns.
We all silly like the mayor.